You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Well, a while back, we had a guest, Sam Liebman, and he was explaining to you how to buy raw land that's zoned for other uses and then get it rezoned and see huge multiples and profits. Now we are really fortunate to have his son, Michael, on with us. And Michael, you are looking at the impending office Armageddon coming up shortly and figuring out what to do with those properties as they get foreclosed on and sold off for pennies on the dollar by the lending institutions. We're really thrilled to have you on. Hey, hopefully you're a chip off the old block and we'll have a great interview like we did with your dad.
Well, thank you for having me, Kerry. And yeah, my dad's definitely a talker, so I hope I'm half as good as him. But
he's a doer. Your father is a talker and he's a doer.
Definitely. He's a Brooklyn guy, works hard, does everything, 100%. He's had a lot of success. You've been very generous to have him on too.
Good. And hopefully we'll have him back on again soon. I know he'd written a book, then he got busy and all, but I'd love to get him back on. But your strategy here, because the key to real estate is adaptation. And when you find that property that maybe can be converted from office or commercial to residential, you can clean up. I know that many of the buildings in lower Manhattan, exactly the same situation. I was on John Street, and all of those office buildings, they were like back offices of Wall Street, and there was even the insurance, maritime, and Maiden Lane over there. They all got converted to residential. But a lot of these new boxy high-rises don't really have that potential. So the creativity is really, really called into play here.
100%. And, look at, you're mentioning downtown, about like Hudson Yards, for example. I have a few friends who work over there. They're empty, man. I don't know what they're going to do. Related developed Hudson Yards, and they're a big company, but I don't know what their situation is. I can't imagine they have high occupancy rates. But I think you look all over a place like Manhattan, for example, and, for instance, I live in Kips Bay, Murray Hill area, and 3rd Avenue has all those, B and C class buildings. They're empty, and you look, what do they do? What do these property owners do? What kind of mortgages do they have? Are they going to be able to pay them off? I don't see it. And another thing is, even the people who are there, about the people who aren't renewing, like about when renewals come up, are they going to renew? I don't think so. I know a guy who has a law firm, works in a building on 3rd Ave. He has 3 people maybe going to work on any given day. Why should he renew? I think it's a waste of money. I think there's many people like that. So what's going to happen? A lot of these, commercial areas are going to have to be rezoned. And yes, they're going to be residential or mixed use. I think mixed use will be much more thing that you see commonly.
All right. And just define mixed use for those of you out there who aren't familiar with that term.
Basically, a piece of real estate that is both for residential and commercial use. So, think anything from, you have a storefront, maybe you have 3 tenants, you have a deli, a bodega, or a Starbucks, and then to top that, you have office space.
Okay. So obviously it's a huge opportunity if you can figure out how to do this. How do you do it?
Good question. First off, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the political situation. Look, most urban areas historically have been run by people who are, Democrat and, progressive. And with that comes a lot. Anyone in real estate knows new development, first off, is incredibly hard. Now about zoning. for buildings that are already there. I actually think in this case, regardless of the political view, most politicians are for rezoning because they see it's a need, and most of the people who live in these urban areas are for it. So I think that you will see these areas rezoned. So that's a good thing, number one. And what's going to happen? I don't think that the owners who have these buildings already are going to be able to keep them. I just think they've lost too much. Now, I think they will go to the banks, these buildings, and you'll have new people redevelop them. And I think you'll see a lot more residential. But here's the one thing: when you take an office building and you're trying to cut it, there's a lot of space that is not, say, it's a lot of internal space. So, like for instance, you can't make everything, a nice, say 1,000 square foot apartment with a great window view. So what do? That's the question. Do you make them condos much bigger? And another thing, look at any politician. They are against rezoning for condos. They do not want condos. They don't want to give any abatements. And that's another thing. New York City. I don't know if your viewers have heard of 421A or J51 abatement programs. In a nutshell, these are basically tax programs from the state that allowed developers, to not pay property taxes for an extended period of time. And in return, they would, give a building maybe 20% affordable housing, right? Those programs are gone. So, if you want to do a new development, can't do it. So what's it going to be? What kind of program are they going to give? Because you're going to need a program, in my opinion, if you want this to pencil out to rezone theyese buildings, right? They're going to have to give up something.
And that's an interesting question there. What you said about like newer buildings, they got way too much internal space. The older buildings like downtown in Manhattan, as it turned out, nobody knew when they were built, were actually perfect for residential conversion because they were a set amount from the elevator core, so you didn't have a lot of internal space, and you could rejigger the floor plan and accommodate residential condos, whatever, or rentals. But like you say, like what do you do with all that? Do you set up an artist studio or WeWork type facilities? We see that you can't really make any money off of those shared office space deals. There's not much profit potential in it. And then I believe that regardless what the political bent of the local administrations is, they will be forced to do this because they're seeing their tax base dissipate. These empty high rises, they're all going to go for tax reductions. They're going to get them. There's no way that you can force an empty high-rise to pay what it would be paying were the place fully occupied. Its value has certainly declined. So I think they got a real good case going to court, doing a certiorari, that's a tax reduction proceeding in New York State, and getting them reduced. So these politicians hopefully see the handwriting on the wall. They're not going to get more pandemic relief money from the federal government, so they're going to be left to fend for themselves. You think that new reality is dawning on the leadership, however challenged it might be?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Torque Resources is an exploration company establishing a portfolio of premier copper gold early stage projects in Chile. Torque's management and technical teams have a strong track record of raising capital, discovery, and monetization of exploration successes. The company's Margarita Copper Gold project is located within the prolific coastal Cordillera Belt in Chile, which hosts some of the world's largest and most profitable copper mines. The Margarita project possesses excellent discovery potential for a major copper discovery due to the strength of the alteration system, large-scale magnetic targets, and the presence of copper oxide mineralization. Drilling is anticipated to begin in Q3 of this year. Torque trades in Canada under TORQ and on the OTC under TRBMF. To learn more, go to torqueresources.com. That's torqueresources.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
You would think so, but in New York, I'm not sure if they understand that they need the real estate community. Don't hold me to it, but I believe that 1/3 of property taxes come from real estate. I'm sorry, 1/3 of the revenue for New York City is coming from property taxes. So obviously very important. And this also goes to something that you were talking about earlier, affordable housing. We have a housing crisis all over the country, in every urban area, especially New York, right? So wouldn't it make sense for these politicians to say, we need to rezone these areas and instead of having condos, which I would agree are unnecessary, let's make these buildings repurposed and have affordable housing there. That would make sense. But I don't know what you just said. Do they really understand how important it is, these rezonings? I'm not so sure, because New York State really is an anti-business state, in my opinion, right now.
It always has been. I told that to Andy Cuomo at a lunch one time.
Oh, okay.
That New York, doesn't matter if you're a small, medium, or large business, New York hates you. And they're just they're always in your face, giving you a hard time, trying to get money out of you for something ridiculous, right?
100%. We have a lot of property in Texas. It's probably, if not one of the most business friendly states. And what you hear from, as someone who's a political junkie myself here, I follow what goes on in Albany and at the state level and at the city council level in New York City. Most of the people in government are, very progressive. I think they've never worked in a business, to be totally honest. And I think everything is just, how can I tax them? How can I get them? How can I make their lives miserable? It's funny you mentioned you were at a luncheon with Andrew Cuomo. He was, I would say, much more, maybe in past years, moderate than, say, where the heart of the New York Democratic Party is now. But as somebody who sort of fancied himself as a moderate like Cuomo, 2019, he signed those rent laws he signed a lot of laws that actually hurt the real estate community. Now, that had nothing to do really with rezoning, but what I'm trying to make the point here is that you now even have a so-called moderate, Democratic politician who is passing passing laws that hurt the business community and the real estate community. But do I think that currently they know they have to do something about rezoning to get that revenue from the property taxes? Yes. I think Eric Adams, who's the mayor right now, has made it very clear that he needs business for the city to prosper. And I think, only time will tell, but he's a breath of fresh air, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm pulling for you. Hopefully he'll be more pragmatic than his predecessors, that's for sure. The last guy,
Yes.
mentioned him.
Yes.
He was an abomination and, did more to destroy the city. I mean, you're a New Yorker. You've been there a long time. All the work that Giuliani and Bloomberg did. Bloomberg had his failings, the big gulp sodas and anti-smoking campaign and but at least he didn't want to put a bike lane down the middle of Fifth Avenue and do bus lanes all over the place to really choke traffic. I mean, this last guy was just, anyway. So point being that the economic reality will eventually dictate the politics, because the alternative is another financial crisis, which probably a year or two down the pike, and then they're going to have to do it anyway.
Well, do what specifically? The rezoning?
Rezone, and all of that. They don't have a choice. They're going to have to do it.
You're going to have these. I mean, in addition to these empty buildings that have been around for decades, you're also going to have. I think the new buildings will be empty, and it doesn't help anybody. So. As you said, they can't just, rely on the federal government to bail them out. I don't think they're going to do it anymore. So they're going to have to get creative, come up with new ideas. And I think it's possible, though. I'm not one of those people who was like during the pandemic was like, New York's dead, New York's over, New York's whatever. Do I think things have changed? And do I think that New York is the same, feeling as it was, say, 3 or 4 years ago? No, I think that, you go to Florida, I know people who moved to Florida. They love it.
Where I live.
Love it. But I'm sure you love it down there.
Yeah.
And, it's a business-friendly state. It has a lot. It's warm right now. I'm in New York, freezing. But I think that, they will be able to, convert a lot of these buildings. It won't be as easy for some, but some will be easier, as we've said. And they're going to have to look for ways to, I think, be more accommodating, let's say, to the business community and the real estate professional.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, the tax dollars eventually will lead them to sanity, hopefully, because the work patterns, I don't know, what are the latest stats? What percentage of office workers have come back? The last number I heard was months ago. I hadn't heard an update. It was 37% of these office buildings were occupied, like around Grand Central in that area.
Yeah, so it's interesting the way they do it. So, for instance, there's this one, how they measure it is interesting. They use this Castle security systems, I guess, is one way to measure it. So basically, they're monitoring how many people are chipping their card into the building. And, for instance, Castle is this big security company that has a lot of, A and B properties. So that could be misleading, but they say the number, to answer your question, they say like 46%, but I'm not so sure. And also, how do they, again, how do they specifically measure that? Is that every day? Is that, because a lot of people are doing hybrids, right? I was just having dinner with my cousin. He's going in once a week. I mean, so I think the reality is most people are maybe there once a week. If they're there, working from home is easier. I could get things done. I could take a walk if I really want to. I could sneak in a gym session maybe if I have a home gym, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that's probably around realistically like 30, 35, if I had to, take a guess.
All right. Well, so it hasn't really improved much. And that is a big problem. Well, at least with people like you, Michael, looking at this, trying to make a profit on it and trying to help the community, maybe we got a shot at it once the political realities, the economic realities dictate the political realities. That's really what it's about. New York's political wasteland disaster area. And I'm not talking about parties. I'm talking about just the fact that they're clueless. And, Will Rogers summed it up best about Congress. Every time they make a law, it's a joke. And every time they make a joke, it becomes a law. And that certainly is the case in New York State. Hey, I know you people are investing with you. If somebody wants to connect with you, if you want to connect on the internet with Michael, how do you do that?
Best way is to go to WealthWayEquityGroup.com. WealthWayEquityGroup.com.
All right. And you'll find a link in the show notes, this interview, on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Send us an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. By all means, post below on the YouTube channel. I'd love to get your take. What do you think about New York City? What does its future look like? And what do you think about the future of commercial real estate in the good old US of A? And while you're at the site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com, make sure you sign up for your free newsletter. Michael, been a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me, Kerry. It was great.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.